Alrighty, what we didn't talk about this morning that I want to talk about is if you are using odorless mineral spirits or you are using citrus thinner like I do, you do not want to just use that to thin your paint, because if you do, you're going to get a grainy mix. So let me clear out a well here. And I'm going to show you exactly what happens. So when they first came out with BC paints, or when Beatrice first came out with the BC paints, she did not have the liquid medium that she has now. The liquid medium is something new that she's come out with since she first introduced the line. And the liquid medium by itself with the paint will work. But if you just had the thinning medium, the original thinning medium, I'm going to show you a little bit about that now, because we didn't talk about that this morning. So one thing I did do is I went back and added some thinning medium to my purple mix that I was modeling with, which is over here in this well. And when I added the thinning medium, you can see it's less watery and it's thicker. So I got a little bit better model pattern that way without having to add more paint. It's a balance of which way you want to go, I guess. But Terry, you might want to pick up a jar of the thinning medium and do that. I will say you don't have to use a whole lot of it to get it thicker if you're adding it with the liquid medium. Now, I will tell you all, veering from the actual product line, another thing that I have done in the past that works really, really well is to use the Exodus thinning oil in the place of either one of those two products. It works beautifully with these paints. And I find it to be quite affordable. Over here I've got, well, no, I take that back. No, I don't have any. I already cleared that palette. Never mind. But anyway, excuse me. That is another, excuse me. That is another thing you can do, is you can use Exodus thinning oil and your citrus solvent or your odorless solvent with your BC paints, and they will work that way as well. And if you want to see that, I can demonstrate that here in just a minute. But let me go ahead and clean out this other side of this well too, so I can do two of them. Just wells to go ahead and do it both. All right, so I'm going to take, I'm trying not to waste any colors. Which color would I use the least often? Probably, well, I guess I'll get one I might use later. All right, I'll start with this rose wine. Let's just start with this. So I'm going to put, let me get a brush. I'm going to get a little bit of this, and I'm going to put it in each of these wells. And I'm not going to mix a whole lot because, like I said, I don't want to waste it. But, so there we've got the rose wine in both wells. If you can see that, I just put it here and here. Okay, so I'm going to use my citrus solvent, and I'm going to add it to this first well, just a few drops of it, and I'm going to start stirring my paint. I'm going to bring this into the camera more. So, can you see that? Okay, as I stir my paints, it dissolves some, but you see how I get grainy bits up on the side of the bowl. And the more you stir it, the more grainy it seems to get. Like it'll melt and then it'll go back. If I added more solvent, it would get even worse. So in the beginning, a lot of people were like trying to paint with this paint, and the Irresistibles Heatset paint does the same thing. They were trying to paint with both of these two lines of paints just using solvent to, I guess you would say, to save money, the way we did with Genesis. But you see, you keep getting those little chunky bits, and it just doesn't work out. It just doesn't work well like that. And you will also not have enough saturation. So, instead of doing that, by itself, if you want to use solvent, then as the bulk of your thinning, then you would need to add to it some of their thinning medium. If you add just the liquid medium to it, it's still going to be chunky. In fact, I did some of that the other night, and well, I'll just show you. Well, let me finish this one, and I'll show you on that in a minute. And it made a mess, but I'll show you in a minute. So let me get this. This is the thinning medium, and I'll get a toothpick and add. Oh, I don't know. You just kind of have to do it until it starts looking smooth. I mean, it depends on what your ratio is that you have in your palette of paint to solvent to start with. So I'm just going to start with a little bit and see if that's enough. Hopefully you can see that. I'll bring the camera down just a tad. There we go. So now I've got that in there, and it's thick, it's not as thick as thick mediums, but it's definitely thicker than any of the Genesis painting medium. What do you call it? Thinning medium. All right, see how the more I stir that, the more my bits are now getting worked in, and it's getting smoother and creamier. So that's your that's the paint mixed with my citrus solvent and the I'll get these names right, thinning medium from BC Paints. Now, if I wanted to, I could, at this point, I could further dilute it. If I wanted to further dilute it with citrus solvent, I can. If I wanted to further dilute it with their liquid medium, I can. If I do it with the liquid medium, I should not have any problem. If I do it with citrus thinner, then I may have to add some more of the thinning medium to balance it out, because like I said, you've got to find your ratio. If you've got a higher ratio of your solvent in there, too high of a ratio, then your paints will start looking grainy, then it won't work so well. But see, that seems to be working pretty good. So that's still okay. So you'll just have to mix it. I can't tell you exactly how much, but you'll just have to mix until you see that it's not, you know, that you're getting more of a liquidy, oily, liquidy look. Like you can see the oil in there from, I call it oil. I don't know that it's actually oil. It's probably more of a synthetic, as I've said earlier. But you can see how that mixes, and it's doing fine. So that is mixing the solvent with the paint from BC, and with that mixing in the thinning medium from BC. And that gets everything to where your paint does not go grainy. Now, what I want to show you here is that if I'm mixing the liquid medium in my paint, let's say I put some of that in there, and I'm stirring that along, and I've got a wash or a color or whatever, and I'm liking how that's going. And this is paint mixed with her liquid medium, both from the BC paint line, and that's working fine. But let's say, oh, I want to thin that on down. I think I'm going to put some odorless solvent in there. Well, if you do like I did the other night, this is what happens. Now, that's using the liquid medium. If you add your odorless solvent to that, well, it works okay right there. The other night, mine went kind of, I may still have enough of that other on my brush. If you've got, okay, that worked. The other night when I did it, it kind of went gunky. And I had to add some what do you call it, some Exodus to it to get it settled down, because I had not gotten in my thinning medium yet. So I don't know, that seems to work. So this one over here, now you can already see this one that's just solvent and the thinning medium is already separating. So you're going to have to stir it a lot. But it'll stir it to where it will stay stirred, as in it doesn't go grainy. So if you're using that with solvent and thinning medium, that will dissolve better, but you may still find you're having to stir it a lot. This one over here that I just put the liquid medium into with the solvent seems to be doing fine right now, but let me stir it around. So that's solvent mixed with the liquid medium. So that seems to be doing okay, but if it starts going grainy, what she recommends herself is that you go, anytime it's going grainy, regardless of what your mix is, she recommends that you add some thinning medium to it. But what I'm going to show you is that I can take right here my Exodus, which is another brand, and I can add it in there and then stir it. And that blends it all together. And that works good too. So I just wanted to show you that, you know, the Exodus. Also, if you only had BC paint and you wanted to use thinner, if you had Exodus, that will also work in the place of the BC thinning medium and or the liquid medium from BC, that you can use the Exodus. In fact, it stays mixed really well. So there's the one that I just did that has thinning medium. I'm sorry, liquid medium, solvent, and some Exodus in it. This one over here has got thinning medium, paint, and solvent in it. And it still, see how it looks like it wants to separate? And that's with just the thinning medium. Now, if I go back and added some of her liquid medium to that, let's see if it stops separating. So the thing that tends to make them want to separate, the whole point of this is the thing that tends to make them want to separate is going to be your solvent. It's not that you can't use your solvent, but you're going to have to put some other stuff in there to keep it from separating, and that will indeed affect your color saturation as well. And see, now that one's doing what mine did the other night. It's really separating now because of that thinning medium in there. Not because of the liquid medium, but because of that citrus in there, I should say. See there, it's wanting to separate out. So what I figured out the other night is when I got into a bad way of it constantly separating out, I added some Exodus to it. And that just fixed the whole thing. And I probably at this point need to add more paint as well because I've thinned it out so much. So I guess the bottom line is these paints were not originally designed to be used with any kind of solvent. You can make them work with solvents, but you're going to have to add their thinning medium to it, and you're going to have to stir it a lot. Or you can buy yourself some Exodus and add that into your arsenal to mix with it all. Personally, I just found that for me, this just goes back to my whole thing of why I love Exodus. I have just found that the Exodus thinning oil just typically solves so many problems for me. And that is why that is just a product I want to always keep on my shelf, because that goes back to what I said about you don't have to always just stick to one product line to have something that works well for you. Because in this situation, I like the BC paints. I like their mediums. I'm fine with painting with the BC paint and just their liquid medium. But if I ran out, I would use some Exodus thinning oil. And if I wanted to use some citrus solvent, I would definitely use my Exodus thinning oil in with it. So that's that's just kind of I'm mixing around of different things. I hope that made sense. But here is the here's what the inside of the jar of the thick medium looks like. Not thick medium, thinning medium looks like. I guess it is more like a thick medium. And so, like I said, the more of it that you add to something, the better it makes it too. I mean, I'll put a big glob in that one that we've already added a bunch of stuff to, just so you can see. If you're sticking entirely to the BC paint line, you don't want to buy Exodus, and you just want to buy BC paint line and nothing else, then I would definitely say get you a big jar of the thinning medium, and get a big bottle of the liquid medium, and plan on incorporating those two mostly. And if you plan to add any odorless mineral spirits or any citrus thinner to them, then you can play around with the ratios, because you're going to have something like this thinning medium or an Exodus that I get from McPherson's. You're going to have something in there to make them meld together better. The only thing I haven't tried with these is I have not tried the liquid thinning product from Irresistibles. I have not tried mixing it with the BC paints. I actually sold my entire set of Irresistible Heatset paints and mediums, and because I thought I wasn't going to use them, and then I later regretted that because I said I should have kept them on hand for more testing. And so I've got another bottle of liquid thin on the way that a friend who had some extra is sending me, so that I can keep playing around. So when I get it, I will try mixing the liquid thin with BC paints and let you all know if that works. Because I know some people are using it mixed with Genesis. So there you go. Hope that makes sense. Hope I didn't totally confuse everybody. And I'll see y'all later.